Hello, everyone. Dr. David Adler, President of the Australian Jewish Association. I'm very privileged to be talking to an outstanding warrior for Israel, Marc Zell. He's a lawyer who specialises in international legal actions and has some sort of relationship I don't quite understand with the Republicans. He's both American and Israeli. Marc, welcome to AJA and thank you for your time.
Thanks, David. I'll explain to your viewers that I'm the chairman of Republicans Overseas in Israel. It's like the Republican Party in Israel, and we have an international organization called Republicans Overseas International, and I'm the vice president and general counsel of that with 50 chapters around the world.
Okay. Now, we've heard in the media that the Biden administration has done something concerning sanctioning of certain Jewish people who live in Yehuda and Shomron, Judea Samaria. What's actually happened?
Well, on February 1st, David, the president issued Executive Order 14115, to be precise, which for the first time in history imposed sanctions on what they call foreign persons, as you indicated, primarily Jewish persons, non-Americans who live really any place in the world, but who would have been guilty, of certain actions. And these actions include supporting policies that are opposed to those of the Biden administration regarding the peace and security of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. And that means basically, for example, like myself, if I'm an Israeli national, if I support, I don't support the two-state solution, or I don't support the president's declaration that his Secretary of State just made this past Friday, saying that Jewish settlements in Judea, of all places, and Samaria are illegal. If you can believe this, reversing a policy of the Trump administration and prior administrations, quite honestly, then I could be subject to sanctions under the executive order, and that means that any property that I have in the United States or bank accounts could be seized and frozen without any kind of due process or any court hearing or anything like that. It's something really like a banana republic, but it's being used, and this is what's really quite extraordinary about this, to silence people who don't agree with the policies of the United States with respect to Judea and Samaria.
That is extraordinary. We heard initially that it was to target people that they thought were violent, terrorist type Jews. That was the accusation anyway. But what you've described is way, way broader.
Oh, yeah. See, that's a problem. What they've done is they've sanctioned so far 4 individuals who, at least one of whom I know for a fact, did absolutely nothing wrong. Nobody checked or anything, but they were sanctioned because of what you said, and the allegedly violent actions against the Palestinian Arabs, but which I think is false, just as a factual matter. But that was the pretext for issuing this executive order, which did and prohibited the kinds of actions, basically free speech and the right of free assembly, the right to protest, the right to give charitable contributions. We have many organizations in the United States. I represent many now who are opposed to the two-state solution, who favor the right of the Jews to live in the heartland of the biblical heartland of Israel, and those organizations, if they contribute to people who are blocked, or organizations who are blocked or associated with blocked persons under these sanctions, they too will be subject to sanctions.
Well,
so
we have a number of friends in Judea Samaria. Yishai Fleischer, who represents Hebron and wants to support the growth of the Jewish community in Hebron, the Nachalah movement and Regavim, who are doing work to support the Jewish communities there. And we're not financially supporting them, but we talk to them and we make sure that their arguments are known to the Australian Jewish community. So that sort of interaction could potentially be caught up.
Well, I tell you something. I mean, you are the executive order applies to foreign persons. These restrictions I talked about are foreign persons. Now, I'm a U.S. citizen. It doesn't apply to me as a U.S. citizen, but I'm also an Israeli citizen. It applies to me as an Israeli citizen. One of the problems with this executive order. We don't know if it applies to dual nationals, but you're an Australian citizen,
Yeah,
right? And you're not a United States citizen.
correct.
Under the terms of this order, if you go out and support actions that oppose U.S. policy in Judea and Samaria, you could be subject to
Amazing.
sanctions. It really is extraordinary when you think about it. I hadn't thought about it in terms of an Australian national or a British or a French national, but yeah, that applies to you. On the face of the executive order, applies to you.
Well, I know Australian people who are in business who are Jewish, who would support certain activities in Judea Samaria. They may well have investments or interests in the United States as well. They're potentially vulnerable, you're saying. That's dreadful.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it. We're talking about, I guess we'll talk about it during the course of your program, the lawsuit that we are
yeah, I was going to ask you about
preparing.
that next.
And
Because
and,
you
and
are
I
taking
hadn't
action.
really thought about including foreign nationals other than Israeli nationals as potential plaintiffs in the case. I think it makes a lot of sense when you read the executive order.
Hmm.
They're covered.
So what are you doing? You're involved in some legal action in the US to try to combat or overturn these sanctions.
Yes, so we're organizing now in the past, really almost immediately after the executive order was issued, I put together a legal team that comprises some very prominent legal talent in the United States, and I won't include myself in that august list. But in any case, we have now drafted a complaint. We're considering filing actually multiple complaints in different courts around the United States to attack this executive order on a variety of different grounds, depending on the person attacking it. Okay, we mentioned foreign nationals like Australians. I mean, they could be potential plaintiffs in this case. There is a prominent member of the Knesset who's chairman of one of the most important committees in the Knesset. He has been singled out by the Biden administration because the executive order also applies to government officials. I mean, for God's sakes, even the prime minister of Israel could be attacked under this and have his assets in the United States, if he has any, subject to sanctions under this executive order, or local government leaders, or police, or members of the military, or really anybody who is opposing the United States government's policy regarding the Judea and Samaria. So we're attacking it on the grounds that it is a violation of the free speech rights of American citizens like myself, who are also dual nationals, who can have their speech rights under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution abnegated by this or attacked by this executive order, or charitable organizations, or churches, for example, in the United States, who would want to invite persons who have been blocked under the sanctions to come to the United States and speak to their congregations or be on their television programs. They are barred under this amendment from actually having these people enter the United States. And anybody in the United States who falls under the aegis of this executive order could conceivably also be deported. So I mean, it's really draconian. That's
Mark,
an understatement.
the more you think about it, the broader it could be. I mean, I'm aware, as you are, that there are certain Christian organisations who arrange for volunteers in farming activities in Judea Samaria, and they're
Yes.
actually working the land there with on Jewish farms.
Yeah.
Tell me, does it apply at all to Arabs or others in Judea
Excellent
Samaria?
question. Excellent question. Okay. If you read the executive order, it doesn't say foreign persons are only Jews. Okay, it
Right.
doesn't say that. But when you read the preamble, the justification for this unique executive order, it only talks about Jews. And then when you read the press briefings from the White House and statements made by the what's called the FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Unit of the Treasury Department, which is in charge of enforcing this executive order against financial institutions, you get the very clear message. This executive order is only aimed at Jews. That also violates the United States Constitution. And the fact that people can have their property taken away by the U.S. government or frozen by the U.S. government without any kind of hearing in court or opportunity to be heard or notice beforehand, all of those things create legal arguments. And then there's a question, David, regarding the authority of the president to issue an order like this in the first place. There's a statute called the International Emergency Economic Act of 1977, which is cited as the congressional authority for issuing this executive order. But that only applies to use its own words, in extraordinary circumstances implicating the national security of the United States. Now, you just think about this for a second. I mean, the total Jewish population of Judea and Samaria, if we just limit it to that, is maybe 500, 600,000 people. Of those, maybe 1% or less than 1% are technically swept up by you can accuse them maybe of doing something that the executive order is intended to remedy. But that tiny group of people is threatening to the United States and national security when thousands of Palestinian Arab terror attacks, the last one just occurred just this past Friday morning on the road to Jerusalem from Ma'ale Adumim. You must have read about it, where one
Yes.
person was
Yeah.
killed, and
About
my
10.
daughter-in-law was literally minutes away
Wow.
from being caught up in that terror attack. But those don't go mentioned at all, David. Okay, they're simply ignored. Only the focus is on Jews. That's illegal. That's unconstitutional in our view. And we're trying to do something about that in the next few days, God willing. Here, my associate just walked in from Benjamin, and he and I are working on this case together with the group in the United States. We hope in a few days to have this filed and have a hearing in both the court, the federal court, and the court of public opinion in the United States and around the world.
Look, Mark, I understand you're busy, and I want to thank you very much for your time in this update. We will circulate it amongst the Australian Jewish community as widely as we can. And as you and I have discussed offline, we would really like to see you in Australia one day. And who knows, maybe we can arrange that for later this year or early.
That would be great. It would be an honor. And thank you for having me on your program, David.
Okay.
Have a great week.
Thank you.
It's my birthday, by the way. So you got me on my birthday. Yeah. So it couldn't be a better timing.
Oh, well, then you should provide the blessings to the Jewish community in Australia.
Well, I do. I want to thank you. I want to send blessings to all the amazing Jewish community in Australia. I'm familiar with it in Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, all around your extraordinary country, and encourage them to stand up to those who are supporting the forces of evil here at this time, and stay your course, stay the course.
Well, it's tough times, and we look at you and use occasionally some of your material. You're very active on social media, Twitter in particular, and so I'd encourage people just to look for Marc Zell on Twitter, and you'll get some highly principled commentary on a whole range of issues. Thank you again, Mark.
Thank you, David. God bless.